Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy Cam here, and today we are going to be discussing every book that I read in 2022. So I read 104 books completely. I did DNF a few books, but not on purpose. I just forgot about them. But in my year of books, it says that I read 11,903 pages, which is not entirely true because some of them are audiobooks, but I digress on that. It says that the shortest book I read was Falls the Shadow, which was an audiobook, which says 20 pages, and the largest book I read was the first book I read this year, which was Hail Mary. And I just wanted to discuss each book that I read with you guys, if I remember much about it, if I don't, what I rated it. I got a stack of books in front of me, and then I'm going to be popping up photos for the audiobooks that I read and the books that I lost. Because there's two books. One, my dog ate. Great. We love that for me. And the other one, I have no clue where it's at. I saw it last week. I do not see it this week. It is just gone. So we're going to go through the books that I read, and we are going to talk about them. So like I said, Project Hail Mary was the first book I read this year. I read it from the 8th to the 18th in January. I gave it 4 stars. Well, I gave it 4.5 stars, but on Goodreads, I rated it 4 stars. So this book was a buddy read. I did enjoy it, but I wish the ending didn't happen. So I feel like the book could have ended without the last chapter. I would have been totally content with that. There's some parts of this book that I remember and I will randomly think about, like Rocky, another character in this book. I love him, but some of this book I just forget. But overall, when I pick up the book, I remember a lot about it. But in my day-to-day life, if somebody's like, hey, did you Project Hail Mary? I'd be like, let me think. Yeah, I remember it. So overall, it is a good sci-fi, but it just wasn't as memorable as I thought it was going to be, though I didn't think I was going to love this book. So it was pretty good. Then my first read of the year was a 4.5 star. The next book does not have a cover on it, but it is called Pale Kings and Princes. It is a Spencer novel. It's number 14. It is a detective series. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I loved it. It was well written. The characters were nice to follow, but it was just kind of bland. It was an average detective story. It's exactly what you think it is, but it was a nice short little read. The next book that I read was 1,000 Paper Cranes. I gave this 4 stars. It is a short little nonfiction. It's well written. It tells the story really well, and I really enjoyed it, and it was very educational, and I appreciated that. Next, I got in a kick. I went to the comic book store and I got a bunch of graphic novels, and I was like, I'm gonna read these once a month, and I didn't. I read all of them. So brace yourself. But the next book I read was Poison Ivy Thorns. I gave this 5 stars. Loved the graphics. I was in love. Next was Primer, which is a graphic novel for kids, but I still loved it. I love the art, and I love the premise of having a graphic novel with a foster kid, I believe, in it. I don't see a lot of those. I gave this 5 stars. I also read this in January. Then I read this short story, which is called The Only Harmless Great Things. It was a book. Do I remember this book? Yes. Do I wish that I remembered this book? No. I gave it 2 stars. It was well written and I have remembered it, so I can't be mad at it, but I did not like this. Next, I read I Am Not Starfire. I loved this. A lot of people bombarded this ratings with 2 stars, but this is a young adults graphic novel, and most of the people that were rating it were adults, adult, not to be sexist, but a lot of people that were rating it were adult males that were mad that this wasn't like Starfile's daughter in the comics. Guess what? There's different comics with different people, and I loved this character, and I loved the sapphic relationship in it. It was so much fun. I loved having queer representation with one of my favorite characters, and it being her daughter. I loved it. Next one I read was another kid's graphic novel, and it was Diana, Princess of the Amazons. I enjoyed this. It was super cute, and it was fun to read. Next was another graphic novel, and I think this is the end for graphic novels for a while, but it was Black Canary Ignite. I loved this one. I loved the art in it. Let's find a page. I loved the art in it. I loved the family history in it as well. Like, it connected the family. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. If you like graphic novels and you like DC, I recommend this one. Even though it doesn't really say if this one's for kids or young adults, it just says DC Zoom. I don't really know what that is. Typically, they put on the back if they're for kids, young adults, or adults, but this one just says Zoom, and I never really found out what that was. Next, we're getting into more books that I read. So I read It Takes One, but I loved this. I gave it 4.5 stars. I loved the book. I loved the characters. I want to continue the series. I'm not a series kind of person, but this is a series, and it's Audrey Hart series by Kate Kessler, and I was in love with these characters. I loved the whole idea that, like, she had to solve this crime. So everyone thinks she did it, but she didn't do it because of something in her past. Everybody believes it's her. And I really enjoyed it. And it was really interesting read. And I can't wait to read the rest of the series. Next was my first 5-star of the read, written by one of my favorite authors, Jordan Green. And it is Every Word You Never Said. And this was a necessary read for me. It is really well written. It also talks about queer problems being in the South. It also has a mute character. There's sign language in it. There's so much representation in this book, and it is so well written, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Next was a graphic novel for kids. It was Batman Tells Once Upon a Crime. It was just a bunch of short little, like, fairy tales told with characters in the Batman universe, and I loved it. It was super cute. Next was a short story that was actually a Christmas story, but I read it in January, and it is I'll Be Home for Christmas. Actually, I read this in February. Okay, to be honest, I don't know when I read this. I have, like, so many dates written on here. But yeah, I read I'll Be Home for Christmas. It is a short story. It is a 1.5 to Mason Denver's novel they wrote called I Wish You All the Best, which was a 5-star read, one of my favorites. I actually annotated in that novel they wrote. And I recommend it if you read the first one. It's just super cute. It's super short. It's like 50 pages. It was a nice little read. Next is I stopped reading for like 2 months, and then I came back and I read Razorblade Tears. I didn't hate this book. I actually gave it 4 stars. It was gripping. It was emotional. It was well written. It was fast paced, but some of the characters I couldn't fall in love with, but I fell in love with why they did it, but I hated why they did it. So the whole journey is these 2 homophobic dads come together because their 2 gay sons who were together died. Yeah, the premise says it all. Some of the characters I didn't really enjoy, but a lot happened, and I have not forgotten a single thing about this book. Next, I read The Collective, which this is the book that I lost. I cannot find it. I rated it 4 stars. I enjoyed it so much. It was so gripping. It had me on my toes, I'm telling you. I loved all of the characters. I loved the twist at the end. I did not see that one coming. I had no clue that was going to happen. And I highly recommend it. Next, I read Breathless. And I'm sorry that I'm, like, talking really loud. I'm, like, super excited about these books because I really enjoyed these books. But I read Breathless. It takes place on a hike, and there's a murderer plucking them off one by one. And I tell you, did I guess the ending? A little bit. But did I guess how they would write the ending? No. It was intriguing. I highly recommended it. I listened to it on audio and I physically read it, and I recommend either or doing both like I did. It was so good. Now I'm gonna hold my phone up, and I am getting into audiobooks that I read because I was home and I was at work. So I did a lot of audiobooks. So the first one I read was The Adventures of Tom Stranger. I gave that 2 stars. It was a short story. I don't remember anything about that book. The second one was A Murder of Manatees, which is the second one in that, and I gave it 1.5 stars. The characters were intriguing enough for me to be okay with the story, but the author started off the book by reading 1-star reviews on his first book, saying how these people were haters, and he's apologizing that he had his, like, creative freedom as an author. And I hate that. I hate when authors, like, critique reviewers, because reviews are for readers, not for authors, unless it's, like, criticizing the writing. Like, I don't know. It was unnecessary and annoying, if I'm being honest. Next was Yellow Heart, Green Heart. I don't really remember this novel at all, but I gave it 3 stars. Next was Snitch. I gave it 2 stars. I don't remember it. Checkup was 3 stars. Don't remember it. Pool House, I gave 4 stars, and I love that, and I highly recommend it. It's super short. It is on Audible, and it kept my heart going, and I still remember parts of that. Next was The Last Conversation. I gave that 4 stars. It was intriguing and something I have never read before, if that makes sense. Next is This Is Not Your Fault. I gave it 3 stars. I think this is about cheating, and I don't know much more other than that. Next was Wait It Out. I gave it 2 stars. I don't remember this. Next was What Child Is This? I gave it 4 stars. I don't remember this. Fall in the Shadow, Warmer, number 5. Don't remember this. I gave it 3 stars. Next was When a Child is Born, The Chronicles of St. Mary's, 2.5. I gave that 3 stars. I love the St. Mary's Chronicles. I don't know why I gave it 3 stars. This one is like their Christmas special. I loved it. For A Foggy Night, I gave that 3 stars. Don't remember it. All the Married Ways, 3 stars. A Caterpillar and Argonaut short story. I gave 3 stars. It is a space marine story, and I'm down for sci-fi. The Myth of the Self-Man, I gave 4 stars. It was really interesting concept, and I love the idea that, like, AI. I love the idea of AI, but I hate the idea of AI at the same time, and this story comments on that. Next was The Dogs of Venice. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was quick. It was a happy story about self-discovery. I love the idea of, like, traveling somewhere new and finding yourself, but with the help of somebody that doesn't know they're helping you. It was super cute. Next was A Gateway Galaxy, number 0.5, which is Shall We Begin? I gave it 4 stars. Next is another St. Mary's Chronicles. It was great. St. Mary's Day Out. It was 4 stars. It was funny. It was nice. It was short. Next was The Zombies Who Visited New Orleans. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's a kid's novel, but it's just the way it was written. I don't know why I rated it that, but it was super funny, and for a kid's book, it was really nice. Next was Countdown, Joe Ledger. It was the 0.5 number. I gave that 3 stars. Next was A Long Way Home, a Pine Deep story. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I wrote that the story keeps you on your toes and wanting more. And all of the Pine Deep stories that I've listened to all kind of blend together, but they were all really interesting, so that's all I have to say. Next was A Boarding Party, a Green Zone war novella. I gave that 3 stars. All of these, like, space marines are kind of blending. The only one that I can keep separate is the Legends Awakes one, but we'll get to that. Next was Safe from Wrath, Extension Protocol, 0.5. I gave that 3 stars. Next was A Mr. Pockets, a Deep Pine story. I gave that 4 stars. Like I said, they're all really interesting. Next was The Vanishing Assassin. I gave 4 stars. Then we have another Joe Ledger, which I listened to a lot of Joe Ledger. I really enjoyed them at the time. I gave it 3 stars. For Zero Tolerance, 1.1. Then I did Deep Dark, which is 1.3. I gave that 4 stars. Then we have A Werewolf's 15 Minutes. And when I tell you, that was a wild ride of an audiobook. It was out of this. It was something different. It was out of pocket. It was insane. I gave it 5 stars. I highly recommend that one. Next was another Joe Ledger one, which is 2.5, which was Dog Days, and I gave it 4 stars. Next was Lost Children, Dark Fairy Tales. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was well written. It kept you engaged, but I feel like none of the stories had endings. I don't know. It was a lot of good short stories put together, and they were well written, but none of them had endings, and I wanted them to end, or I wanted them all to connect. I don't know what I wanted, but it didn't give me what I wanted. Next is How It Ends. I gave it 5 stars. Why? I can't tell you. Next was the Prowine Viper. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's a multiple point of view. It's provoking and engaging. Next was One Little Mistake. I gave it 4 stars, and it was very fast-paced. I had my heart racing. It was so many twists in the story, and I want to know what happened after the story ended. Like, that's how gripping the story was. Next was Ten Tails' Journey to the West, which was 3 stars. Then we have Inside Jobs, The Tales of Times of Quarantine. I gave that 4 stars. It's exactly what you think it is. Then we go to Tin Man, Galaxy's Edge, 0.5, 4 stars. Space Marines, exactly what you think. Next was Escape First, Vengeance Later, Werewolves Book 0, which I gave 3 stars. Then you have Gateway to Union, 3.5 stars. It's a great intro novel, and it made me want to continue the series. I don't know how to pronounce this. Nikala? I gave it 3.5 stars. I don't remember this. Next was Bridesmaids. I gave it 4 stars. It's a cute, quick little read about a queer romance. Then you have Ashen Stars, Exile, 0.5. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's a novella. It's well written, and it sets the series up well. Next is Arson, Flixism, the complete wit and wisdom of one of the characters. I can't think of what it is right now. I gave it 2 stars. I don't know why I listened to this. I think it was because it was free. It was stupid. Next is Preconceptions, a memoir. It was an incredible journey of 2 women falling in love and wanting a family and how that family can be defined. I highly recommend it if you are looking at starting a family. And if you are trans, which is why I listened to it. There's also like music and stuff to transition to it, but I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. I don't know why. I should not be rating memoirs because it's somebody else's life. Next is The Demon of Cora Lear, a prequel novella to The Sleeping Legion, which is what I was talking about a minute ago, which is 4 stars. It's descriptive. It's great. I loved all of the characters, and I am continuing the story next month, actually. Next is a Jack Noble story, which is 0.5. The Recruit, I gave it 3 stars. It was a short little intro. Next was The Maintenance Race. I gave it 3 stars. It's literally about the maintenance race. It's just about characters that took a boat on a trip. I don't know what to say. Next was Inception, Forsaken Mercenary, 0.5. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was well written. It flowed well. It was a story. I did like the characters, though, and I still remember this one to the T. Next was The Invasion, the Earth Epilizon Wars, Book 0. I gave it 4 stars. Next is The Last Command, Fallen Empire, 0.5. I gave it 4 stars. I wrote that it was like standing with them throughout the whole book. It was detailed and engaging, but I don't remember it. But me who read the review, loved it. Next, we're getting into physical books that I read again, and I read Dawn Stories. It's a bunch of short stories, and they're well written. It is a translated novel, and I gave it 4 stars. It was emotional and thought-provoking. Next is Love Poems for Anxious People. I gave it 3 stars, and not to be an asshole, but it felt like I was reading poems that were made by a 13-year-old on their Tumblr account. And that is coming from somebody who had a Tumblr account when they were 13. Next is Room of Shadows. It is a middle grade, but I gave it 5 stars. I highly recommend it. It is heart-pounding, gripping. I loved it. And if you love poetry, specifically Edgar Allan Poe, I highly recommend this one. Next is Tastes Like Candy. It is a 5-star read for me. It is a slasher novel. It was intriguing. I fell in love with all of the characters, and I did not see that twist coming, I will be honest. And I still think about this book to this day. Merfolks. I gave it 3 stars. I love mermaids, and I love all things about mermaids, but this book was not it. It was so long and unnecessary details in some of the scenes. Like, I don't know. It wasn't my cup of tea. And you knew what was going to happen at certain points. The author wrote sentences that told what was going to happen. It was something else. But I don't know. I'm thinking about reading some of his other books, but if they're anything like this, I'm not going to continue. Next was The Haunted. I gave this a 4-star read. This book is well written and very descriptive. Like, it had me gut-wrenched. There is trigger warnings on this novel, though, so just be prepared and look them up. Crush and Lobo. It's a graphic novel. Loved the art, loved the characters. I believe I rated this 4 stars. Next, I tabbed some of this book, but not a lot. I really do want to reread it and read some more. It is 10 minutes, 38 seconds in the Strange World. I gave it 4 stars. It is another translated novel, but it is translated by the author. And I am in love with this. Do I understand it how somebody who lives there would? No. But it was very thought-provoking and a very intense read as you follow along with this character's life. Next is another wonderful read. I gave it a 4.7 read. I got an arc of this book, but it is out now if you would like to read it. It is this I Promise You. There is a list of trigger warnings, and it is on Goodreads. The author gives them to you specifically. Both authors actually list them. It is co-written by Jordan Green and Caleb Daniel, and I highly recommend this book. It is a romance. It's kind of enemies to lovers, but they're not exactly enemies. It also travels through trauma as well as finding relationships in college, and it is surrounded by queer people as well. So I highly recommend this book, especially if you went to UNC Charlotte. You're going to know everything in this book because it talks about the campus in detail. So I recommend this book if you're looking for a really in-depth, heart-to-heart read, as well as something where you watch somebody grow from their trauma. Next was The Undrowned. I loved this book. It is a kid's book, but I gave it 4 stars. I recommend it so much. I still think about this book to this day. Some of these scenes are engraved in my head. It was like watching a movie. It was really well written and definitely heart-pounding. I gave this book 3.5 stars. It's an interesting concept, but to be honest, the female was only there to be a female, and I did not appreciate it, as well as just other parts of the book wasn't like my cup of tea. I don't know what to say. It is a book, nonetheless. And it's got space in it. It's got aliens in it. It's got humans doing what humans do. Yeah. Next, I read A Gothic Rendezvous, and I'm the only person to put this on Goodreads, but I do recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. It's a well-written collection of poetry. I met the author. He's amazing. He's super sweet, and it's actually signed. I don't know what to say other than, like, some of these make sense in the context of what the title is, others don't, but it's super cute. It's a nice little coffee table book. Next, I read The Stars Will Judge. It was fast-paced, super quick read, and I gave it 4 stars. One of Us. I believe it's about the AIDS epidemic, just using mutants instead. I do not enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars because I didn't really know what to say because it was kind of well written, but it was just not a good book in that sense. Next, I read the first book in this book, so I didn't read the whole book. I read up until this bookmark. I read book 1 in this, which is The Scattered Bodies Go. It's 4 stars. It's an intriguing concept, and it was a lot of moments where I was kind of bored and I had to use audiobook to get through it, but it is interesting. Next is my favorite book of the year, which was a 5 stars. Okay, not only is it fast-paced, it is intriguing. I am in love with the girl who fell beneath the sea. I'm in love with the girl that fell beneath the sea. I love this book. I tabbed it so much, as you can see. I highly, highly recommend it. It is a retelling, which is one of my favorites. And it's just, look at that cover. It's also so beautiful. If I would not have participated in the Studio Ghibli readathon, I would have never discovered this book. I'm so glad that I found it because it's my favorite book of the year. Next, The Lost Carnival is really beautiful art. It is a nice Dick Grayson novel with his parents involved. I gave it 4 stars. Norman the First Slasher, I gave it 4 stars. I don't know. It's a graphic novel about a kid that slashes things. My friend gave me this book, which is The Clan in Need, Warriors manga, Ravenpaw Path #2. I didn't rate it. It's exactly what you think. It was cute. I don't know. Next, I read a Kindle book called Miss Marvel Volume 1, No Normal, and I gave it 4 stars. I love Miss Marvel. Next was the Batman Scooby-Doo Volume 1. It was cute. It was 4 stars. It's Batman and it's Scooby-Doo, so that's awesome. Then I read Star Trek First Contact. I didn't rate it. It's based off the movie. It is a middle grade version of the movie, but it was cool. It was a nice little read. Next was The Midnight Library. I gave it 4 stars. Trigger warning, concept of this book, as well as it was really good of a read, but I think if I were to reread it now, I would agree with other people saying that I felt like get better cards. Next was a graphic novel, A Girl from the Sea. I found a bookmark. Next was Girl from the Sea. I gave this 4 stars. I love it, and I'm definitely going to be buying more graphic novels from this author. It was really nice, little queer romance, and it was super cute. Next was an audiobook called A Change of Plans. I gave it 3 stars. Web of the Witch World. I gave it 3 stars. I did not want to finish this book, but I finished it. Next is the book that my dog ate, which is Quarantine Star Trek Voyager Starfleet Academy #3. I didn't rate it. It is a middle grade. It is a Star Trek book. It was well written and was characters from the Voyager as children. It was nice. Next was an audiobook called My Best Friend's Exorcism by Gady Hendricks. I gave that book 3.5. Overall, it was a good story, but it could have been way shorter. I'm sorry, Grady. I love your books, Hendricks, but this one was so drawn out. But it was good. I like the characters, kind of. Next is Sick. It is unnecessarily homophobic and racist, and I was super excited to read this book as a theater tech, but I am beyond pissed at this book. I absolutely hated it. That is all I have to say. Also, as somebody with those disorders that is mentioned in this book, he is a horrible person. I don't like the main character, and I feel bad for some of the girls. I feel bad for all the people that are queer in this book. I feel bad for anybody that's not white in this book. This book was written recently. Why is there still homophobia, racism, all the shit in this book? I don't know. I don't recommend it. Do not read this book. Next was a list of children's audiobooks. So I listened to The Temple of Ruby of Fire, Geronimo Stilton #14. I listened to It's Halloween, Euphrates Mouse, Geronimo Stilton #11. And The Curse of the Cheese Pyramid, Geronimo Stilton #2. I loved the audiobooks. I loved Geronimo Stilton. It was like one of my favorite things as a kid, so it was nice to relive my childhood. Next was an audiobook called Second Skin. I gave it 4 stars, but I don't remember the book. Next was Last Stand. I gave it 3 stars. It's your average military novel, but thrown in with zombies. I don't know. Do I recommend it? Not really. Next is Snowflake Kisses, which is 1.5 to the first Jordan Green book I showed you, and it is super cute little novel, and I am in love with it. I gave it 5 stars, obviously. And then the last book of the year that I completed, not started, was Book Love, which is just a bunch of nice little comics about books and loving books, and I recommend it. It's a nice little coffee table book, and that ends out the year for me. I did start 2 books and finish reading them in the new year, but I think I'm gonna add those in next year's list of books that I read and just say, hey, I finished these, I didn't start these in the year. But overall, I'm really happy with the books that I read. Overall, I am happy that I read 104 books, even though I kind of wish I remembered or I liked more of those audiobooks. So I listen to audiobooks while I work because it helps me work easier. So that's why there was so many short stories just thrown in there randomly. But overall, I'm really happy with the amount of books that are sitting in front of me, and I am just happy that I took the time to read. I could have read 5 books and I'd still be happy. I want to know what your favorite books that you read this year are, or what your least favorite books are. So obviously my favorite book is The Girl Beneath the Sea, and my least favorite book was Sick. And if I had to pick a second one, it would be One of Us. Also unnecessarily racist. Even though I get it, it's set in that time period, but I don't want to read about it. Don't get me started. Don't get me started on that, okay? Those 2 books, my least favorite books. My favorite books, obviously The Girl That Fell Beneath the Sea, and any Jordan Green book on this list. Thank you for listening to this very quick, rapid-fire review of these books that I read, and I hope you guys enjoyed. You want to check out my channel, go for it. If you don't, that's cool. If you like this video, let me know, and I am going to go ahead and go, and I will see you guys next week. So peace out, rock on, over road, don't forget to grow your wings, fly high, touch the sky, make sure everyone knows your name. Love from my screen to yours. Bye, my little butterflies. Cameron, out.